gold earrings and made a golden calf. They built an altar in front of the calf for sacrifice. The following day they had a festival with burnt offerings. We have festivals here. We usually don't have burnt offerings, but that's what they did. Then they sat down to eat and drink. And then the part that's kind of polite in the Bible, even as it's referenced in the New Testament, after they sat down and ate, they got up for revelry. That doesn't mean they blew the horn and got in formation. It's revelry. They had fun. They did things that you're not really supposed to do, but that's what they did. So the people didn't just backslide. They didn't just sort of like fall into some bad habits while Moses was gone. They rejected God. They basically said, this God that Moses is referring to, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, well, I don't know where he's gone, but we need something, we need to get going. We need to get something replaced with. And so they convinced Aaron to make this golden calf. They basically say, we reject that God. We want this God. And so why would they want their own God? So they could tell it what to do, right? So they could decide what right and wrong is. And so they created their own God and their own rules, and they were going to do things their own way. They don't want to wait for God to tell them what to do. This is similar to, we see in the book of Judges, everybody did what was right in their own eyes. I mean, it's a plague of the human nature. Started with Adam and Eve. They ate from the tree, and basically they could decide what's right or wrong. They don't have to listen to God. Moses comes down and sees what the Israelites are doing and throws down the tablets of the law. They're broken. There is now a question, is God really going to lead us to the promised land? So now it's a question. Moses is like, God's not happy with the people of Israel, the stiff-necked people of Israel. And Moses is questioning, is God going to be with us? Is he going to really lead us into the promised land? How do I know that you are with us? And you say you know me, you know my name, and such. And that brings us to the passage that we read where Moses wants to see who God is. It wants to show me who you really are. Okay? And so Moses asks him to reveal himself, and God responds by passing in front of Moses and describing himself as compassionate, gracious, slow to anger, and overflowing with loyal love and faithfulness. Then he said, I will make my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before you. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. So, of all the things that God could say about himself at this time, he could have said, awesome, I'm an awesome God. That's who you are. When you think of me, you should be in fear and think of us as an awesome God. You should think of me as a God of judgment, of telling you what to do and punishing you for what you've done. He could have been exposing, I am the creator of all things. Show me that I create, I am awesome. I am the only God of gods. Okay. So what does he say? He only has a couple words to say who he is. God was going to do to Moses what I asked you guys to do a few minutes ago. In just a word or two, who am I? So God says, I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. This is the God of the circumstance here. If the people of Israel had waited and not created the golden calf, and then Moses came down and gave them the law, and they would have been all copacetic, hey, we're going to go and going to the promised land. We know God is with us. Would compassion and mercy mean anything to them? No. So the word that we use here for compassion is rakum, and that's the last you're going to hear me say that Hebrew word. Sometimes it's translated in different versions mercy, and sometimes compassion. And across different passages, that same word could be translated compassion, could be translated mercy. So in verse 34:6, the last one that Mark read this morning, and he passed in front of Moses proclaiming, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness. Here it is used as an adjective. And so what kind of God is he? A compassionate God. What is his actions? He acts with compassion. Well, that's why I messed up. I two-sided my page, and that got me off track. So I went to page 3 instead of page 4. Sorry about that. That's why it didn't make sense. Okay. So in our passage, so the first term that God uses to describe himself is compassionate, gracious. Why not creator, almighty God, living, all-knowing, all-powerful? And so we're talking about his relationship to the people. And we come to this verse that says, they shall neither hunger nor thirst, neither heat nor sun shall strike them, for he who has mercy on them will lead them. Even by the spring of water he will guide. So mercy, here it's translated mercy. And it's an action of God. It's not like, oh, merciful. Okay? It means that I'll protect you. It means I will lead you. It means that I will guide you. Okay? So his compassion is his involvement in our lives. Okay? His compassion is not just a head game. Okay? It's a real thing. So you have your first point. Were these in the bulletin? Yeah. God shows compassion towards his people. Okay, that's what we're seeing here in the Old Testament. Another verse, Isaiah 49, says, can a woman forget her nursing child and not have compassion on the son of her womb? Surely they may forget, yet I will not forget you. See, I have inscribed you on the palms of my hands. Your walls are continually before me. Whoa, what's this walls continually before me? I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so the proposal is made, does a woman forget the child in her womb? No. Surely they will have, that mother has compassion on the child, has a feeling for that child. But you know what? There are circumstances where that happens. That's what's being raised here. That's why it is a question. That's why it says, surely they may forget about that compassion. As the kid gets older and gets a little unruly maybe, like, get this kid out of my life. God's saying, that is not the case with me. That might happen sometimes with the relationship of a woman, but yet I will not forget you, says God. See, I have inscribed you on the palms of my hand. What happens? What does this mean? He inscribes their names on the palms of his hands. Back at that time, if you were a slave, you might have your master's name written on your hand. You know, if you end up someplace and they're like, who's your master? Right there. You know, I can't read, but that's who it is. Okay. The master would not write the name of the slave on their hand. But God's saying, I will. I will know you. I will have your names on the palm of my hand. So we get to the last second part. Your walls are continually before me. He's talking about Zion. I see you all the time. I see the people of Israel. The walls of your city are before me, and I will not forget you. My compassion compels me to regard you as someone I care about and love, will guide and lead. Okay. So in this second part here, this here is in the prior verse in Exodus. It was really the verb, and this is where I got lost between page 2 and 3. So here, compassionate and gracious God. It is who He is. It's an adjective that describes Him. The first reference was to what He does. I will have compassion. I am a compassionate God. So let's look at some other context for this word. But you, O Lord, are a God of compassion and graciousness, long-suffering, and abundant in mercy and truth. So here in the psalm, we acknowledge that God is this thing. This is who He is. As the psalmist thinks about God, he is overwhelmed with His compassion and His graciousness. Israel has fallen many times. The leaders have fallen many times. And they are constantly reminded, because of their sin, that God is a compassionate and gracious God. You would have given up. Anybody else would have said, hey, chapter 1, chapter 2 of Judges, we're done. That's it. Sorry, Israel, we'll have to try to find some other chosen people somewhere. God persists. Unto the upright there arises light in the darkness. He is gracious and full of compassion and righteousness. So when we find ourselves in a place where things are not good, when we find ourselves in darkness, when we find ourselves in hopelessness, when we find ourselves repeating sin after sin, or we find ourselves in circumstances that bring us downtrodden financially, we lose a job, we lose a home, our car is on the fritz, our relationships are broken. Those are dark times. And we're looking for a light. What light is there really available to us? There arises light in the darkness. He, God, is gracious and full of compassion and righteousness. We can look to God during those times because He is a compassionate God who cares about us. We remind ourselves of that. We're going to switch to the New Testament. In Matthew 9, 35 and 36, it says, Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them, because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. These verses state what Jesus did and why he did it. So it's kind of a little bit out of order. Let's reverse it for clarity. So it says what he did, and then it says why he did it. So he's really seeing that people harassed. Their circumstances that they are helpless without a shepherd. They're sick. They have needs, and he has compassion. Okay? So you see that in the latter part. He had compassion on them. Well, okay, you got this feeling, so what? Okay? For Jesus, that compassion resulted in healing and teaching them the good news. So his compassion led to action, a response. So his life was the embodiment of God's compassion. Jesus embodies God's compassion. You might have started to figure out the outline blanks. All have the same answer? Yeah. Oh, well. No secret there. Sorry. I have a little story here. A pastor once rode along with a local EMT crew. Late in the night, they responded to a call about an elderly gentleman who had fallen, an elderly woman who had fallen in her home. She wasn't seriously injured, but she was terrified, shaking, confused, and alone. The EMTs gently lifted her, checked her vitals, and assured her she would be okay. But when it came time to leave, she grabbed the EMT's arm and whispered, "Please, don't go. I'm scared." The EMT could have said, "Ma'am, we've done our job. We have other calls." Instead, he pulled up a chair, sat beside her, and said, "I'm not going anywhere until you feel safe." He stayed, not because protocol required it, but because compassion compelled it. Later, the pastor asked him why he stayed so long. The EMT shrugged and said, "When someone is scared and helpless, you don't walk away. You stay until they know they're not alone." That is the heart of Jesus in this passage that we just read. He sees crowds who are harassed and helpless. He doesn't see an inconvenience. He doesn't see a burden. He sees people who desperately need a shepherd, and his compassion moves him towards them, not away from them. Okay, I'm going to step out on real thin ice here. Compassion here is a Greek word, and I was almost tempted to call Dan and have him come up and pronounce it. He does better with these words than I do, but I'll give it a try. Langdek nid zum ahi. How'd I do? They got me. No, that's compassion. Okay. It describes, the word is used to describe a gut feeling, okay? A visceral response. It's not like, oh, this is happening, check brain, oh yeah, when that happens, you should have compassion. It's not that. It's, I feel it. I feel it in my gut. And so, so Jesus doesn't just notice compassion, suffering. He sits with it, he enters it, he stays. Mark chapter 1, verses 40 and 41. Now a leper came to him, imploring him, kneeling down to him and saying to him, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." Then Jesus, moved with compassion, stretched out his hand and touched him and said to him, I am willing, be cleansed. Note, he does not blame them for their poor circumstances, nor does he identify them as simple victims. Jesus compassionately helps people with impartial love, whether their bad circumstances are self-imposed or a result of being mistreated. In Luke 7 it says, And when he came near the gate of the city, behold, a dead man was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. And a large crowd from the city was with her. When the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her, and said to her, Do not weep. Then he came and touched the open coffin, and those who carried him stood still. And he said, Young man, I say to you, arise. There we go. So Jesus meets that woman and has compassion on her. It's not like the crowd says, oh, you should heal this person, blah, blah, bring him back from the dead, whatever. He feels for her. When I went for fire chaplain training, probably the key message we are told is that we are called to the practice, the ministry of presence. Our role is non-sectarian. As a fire department chaplain, I'm not there as a Christian or Jew or whatever. It's to provide presence for those who might be have suffered a loss of a home or something, fatality at an accident, or even an injury at an accident. And so if I was in the city, I might, around here probably, I'm acting more in the role as a Christian, but in the city, I would have to be showing compassion for someone who might be a Jew or an atheist or a Muslim or whatever, or even a, no, that won't go there. So, and when I was overseas doing ministry with refugees, it was there as a role of compassion. Now, somebody's supposed to silence their phone, and I didn't. Oh, it is silenced. You can't hear it. I can hear it, though. Go away. I can't think while it's ringing in my ear. Okay. Sorry about that. So that answers the question. When it's on silence mode, I can still hear it in my hearing aids. That's kind of a drag. Okay. So what exactly what Jesus does? He can be present, but he can also change the outcome. Okay, he can actually raise people from the dead, heal the sick, and so forth. So Luke says here, and that word compassion is basically his heart went out to her. He steps into the procession, interrupts death itself, and speaks life. Where others see a funeral, Jesus sees a mother whose heart is breaking. Where others see finality, Jesus sees an opportunity for compassion. Jesus' whole life was compassion. His sacrifice was an act of compassion. As the Roman soldiers kill him, Jesus is compassionate toward them, praying for their forgiveness. So they're in the act of crucifying Jesus, and his heart is moved to say, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Even though we are unfaithful to God, Like Israel in the Exodus 32, Jesus chose to suffer on our behalf so that we can be healed and restored into a good relationship with God. In 1 Peter, it says, who himself bore our sins in his own body on the tree, that we, having died to sins, might live for righteousness, by whose stripes we are healed. So, he died on the cross for us, that we might live for righteousness, that we might live in freedom. When we follow Jesus, we acknowledge we want to be like him. Popular years ago were the WWJD bracelets and other paraphernalia. What would Jesus do? There's this emphasis that if we are to follow Jesus, we're going to be like Jesus. But not just in our actions, but in our heart and in our attitude. God calls us to compassion. So as he is holy, we are holy. When we follow Jesus, we want to be like him. Our Christian faith is not just a belief system. It is a way of life. It is how we live our life. It is a response to the compassion shown to us by God. Oh, I got ahead of myself. I skipped this slide here. Okay. Blessed be the God, the Father, Creator of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort those who are in any trouble with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. What God has done for us helps us in doing for others. Okay. Therefore, if there is any consolation in Christ, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and mercy, fulfill my joy by being like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. So we are to be like-minded. Well, what does that mean? We just read, to be like-minded is providing the comfort of love. To be right-minded is to engage in the fellowship of the Spirit among us. To be like-minded is to be affectionate. To be like-minded is to be merciful or compassionate. Our experience of God choosing to be compassionate towards us motivates us to extend the same tender care to others. Through great suffering, great love is often produced. As we demonstrate care and concern for those who cannot or will not return the favor, we become more like our deeply compassionate Father, embodying his compassion to the world around us. In Luke 6:36 it says, therefore be merciful, just as your Father also is merciful. So this is kind of a long introduction to this idea of Compassion Sunday. We know that God is a God of compassion. We know that Jesus, when he came, embodied that compassion among us. And we know that if we are called by God, that we are to be compassionate also to others. So we are highlighting a particular ministry this morning called Compassion International. It's a program that Cheryl and I have been familiar with for 30 years, I think, somewhere in the mid-90s. Yeah. So, and have been involved with. And it's a solid organization. If you go to, there's an independent site you can go and check on different organizations for the percentage of work they do compared to the dollars they have to spend for marketing and other types of things. Compassion is way up there. They, I checked out a couple of my other favorite ministries, Operation Mobilization, which I was involved in, and Samaritan's Purse, and it actually edges above those two a little bit on their responsibilities. Those are two great organizations too. I'm just saying it's up there. And so what I'd like to do is show a video right now that is the 2025 report of what they did last year. That will help you get context.
2025 was a hard year for many. Floods swept through villages, conflicts uprooted families, hunger touched far too many homes. There were many dark days full of loss and sorrow. Yet even there, God was at work, and through you, He brought the light of His great hope to children in desperate poverty. Because of your compassion, 2.4 million children were known, loved, and protected by their local churches this year. More than 15,500 children received life-saving surgeries and critical medical care. Over 324,000 families received emergency aid, support to rebuild their lives after disaster, and counseling that brought healing and hope. 330 new compassion centers opened their doors, welcoming roughly 137,731 more children into the program, where they hear the good news of Jesus and are being empowered to live a thriving life in relationship with Him. Through our survival initiative, more than 69,092 mothers and babies were cared for during their babies' precious first years of life. And this year, 69,583 young men and women graduated from the Compassion Program, stepping boldly into the future God has prepared for them. With them, they carry the hope of Christ, equipped to do His kingdom work wherever they go. While so many people, including those here at home, were not spared from seeing some dark days, it's in the dark where the light, His light, shines the brightest. Every prayer you lift, every letter you write, every gift you give, they shine hope into a child's life. The darkness may be great, but the light of Jesus shining through you is greater still. Thank you for empowering children around the world to walk in the light of life. And thank you for releasing children from poverty in Jesus' name.
So as you leave today, there's a table out there, and a couple of young ladies are going to be manning the table. There are packets for actual children that have connected to a center but don't have sponsorship. So I don't know if that means they can show up for some Bible study maybe, but they're not receiving sponsorship for and such. And when we've done this in the past, the ages have been somewhere in the 3 or 4-year-old to 12-year-old. What we received as packets today was a lot bigger range. There were 2 packets for 2-year-olds and 2 packets for 17-year-olds. So, so think about, if you want to be involved in this, if you want to be able to support a child, if you're looking to support a child and expect to be writing letters for the next couple of years and hearing from them, if you pick a 2-year-old, you're going to hear from the center person saying, oh, they're receiving care, and whatever. It's not going to be the 2-year-old, 3-year-old sending. Some of the ages are from the time it says, oh, this is a 5-year-old, but if you look at the birthday, it turns out it's a 6-year-old. So whenever the packet was created, they're 5 years old. You look at the back, it'll say, they've been waiting for a sponsor 423 days. or, I don't think any of them were less than 365, what I could tell. So think about, if you are interested, and this is really a way, it's $40 a month, and you can correspond with them with a letter that you send, or you can correspond for those who, like to use the computer for type of thing. You can also write a letter on the computer, and it gets sent to them, and it goes back and forth with a translation both ways. The time that it takes to go back and forth sometimes can be 6 to 8 weeks. Okay, so you'll send a letter, you get a letter back 2 weeks later, and you go, oh good, they're responding. No, they're not responding to your letter. They just happen to write a letter, and you got it. So you have to get used to this idea. You are helping a child that's in terrible circumstances. And so you are, in a sense, this is not about you. It's about your compassion for them, and such. There's 2 ways you pick a child. You take the packet, you take the form out, you fill it out, and you give it to the young ladies at the table. Or if you're a smartphone and you like to do things that way, there's a QR code on the front of the packet. You hit that with your camera, and it brings you directly to the form to fill out for that child. So that, for those who want to do it that way, it will be credited that those particular children out there are only on a table at this church. They're not at a table somewhere else, and they'll be open for sponsorship for the next couple of weeks. So we'll still have them available if you want to go home and think about it or whatever. We'll have them, and those can be sponsored. After a while, maybe a month or so, they'll realize we're not picking up on them, and they'll be recycled into some other program. I didn't bring it with me. There's a QR code I could have had that if you sponsor somebody, we can get credit as a church. I'll bring that with me next time, so in case someone, if you feel that there's certain countries or certain age and gender and they're just not there, because you guys are so compassionate, use up all the packets, you can still sponsor one online, and I can help you do that next week if that is the case. So you say, hey, I wanted a 5-year-old female to sponsor, and there's none left. There's only the 17-year-old and the 2-year-old. Then, we'll try again next week. I'll be at the table, and we can help navigate that. I think that's the mechanics. If you have any other questions, the young ladies will attempt to answer those at the table. So that's it. Brandon's got something he's going to add.
This is what the packet looks like. Because this is something that we truly believe in, even as a church, we sponsor 2 of our own here. Who knows that we have a compassion board already? That it's back across, literally it's across the hall from the women's restroom. We're going to move it so that more eyes can be seen on it. We're going to put it right there where the flags are. We're going to move those flags over here behind the piano so that more eyes can be put on it. More eyes can see it. If you take a packet, once you receive like your welcome letter and everything that way, if you will just simply cut this front portion off and bring it back in, we're going to put it up there on the bulletin board as well, so that more people can see that, hey, these are the kids that either the church or the members of the church are actually taken care of. So, yes, this is something that is absolutely phenomenal ministry. Thank you, Keith, for everything. But, yeah, we want as many eyes on the children as we can, because for every one packet, there's thousands and thousands more. that need help.